Today I'm going to talk about comics that could have been awesome. Comics that had the ultimate potential but ended up failing. Now some of these may shock or annoy you, so just a quick disclaimer. I like and respect all of these comics. I'm just pointing out that unfortunately they could have been better. So, this first entry may surprise you, but bear with me. Hellboy is a gothic Lovecraftian comic starring the world's greatest paranormal investigator. Wait, before you click off, I absolutely love Hellboy. For a while there, it was even like my favourite comic, but personally, I believe that it could have been better. Now Hellboy is a story that starts off small and ends large scale and epic. I think that Hellboy as a character could have benefited from staying true to his humble beginnings. If I'm remembering correctly, Hellboy was originally created as a pulp hero who would fistfight a monster to save the damsel in distress, as seen in some of his early appearances. But this was even more evident as the series went on. We saw him investigating ancient evil in New England mansions, fighting Nazis like a pulp hero and not like Antifa because that's gay and retarded, all the while saying one-liners and being an all-round badass. This is my favourite version of Hellboy, when he was with the BPRD investigating with Liz and Abe. Yet we don't get much of that before the comic turns into more of an ambiguous artistic tale. Don't get me wrong, that stuff still is great. I just think that this could have worked better as a long-running series where Hellboy is investigating something new every issue. Then in between those smaller stories we could have had longer ones with the more important villains and higher stakes. I believe that Hellboy is a character that shouldn't really have an ending. He should have endless stories and adventures with the BPRD. I haven't read any of the short stories, so maybe that's what I need to go do. But after reading the main story, I was left unsatisfied. Sure, you can create an ending for your character, but first there should be a solid amount of material with them normally. For example, Solomon Kane, a character similar to Hellboy that Mike Mignola also worked on. He has countless tales of him crusading through England or Africa, facing evil men or demonic phantoms of death. It's not like he does that for 2 stories, then quits, because that would be stupid. It's the same with other pulp characters. Does Philip Marlowe solve one case, then pack it in? No, he will always be investigating, because that's how these characters work. If we take that principle and apply it to Hellboy, it doesn't make any sense, because Hellboy is called the world's greatest paranormal investigator, yet he stops doing exactly that after a couple of stories. I still appreciate Hellboy. He is a goddamn cigarette smoking, trench coat wearing tough guy who will always be iconic and unique. He could just do with a little less epic fantasy and a little more Hammer horror style sleuthing. Oh yeah, and PS, do not look at these creators' politics. They are beyond retarded. So the second entry is one that some of you may not have heard of. Fables is a DC Vertigo comic where all fairy tale characters are living in New York City and have to blend in with the modern world. It seems creative at first, and it does have some interesting ideas, but ultimately it falls flat on its face. Long story short, I found this comic through the video game that is based on it, The Wolf Among Us. The Wolf Among Us is a noir detective story where you play as the big bad wolf, but instead you're a private detective called Bigby Wolf in a seedy, R-rated city. I love the game, and I especially thought that Bigby was awesome. So naturally, I had to read the comics, but that was when massive disappointment sank in. For some reason, they made the game extremely gritty, and I don't know what comics they read, but Fables is an absolute mess. The first storyline in the comic has Bigby Wolf investigating a murder in New York City. It has him smoking, quipping, and transforming into the big bad wolf. Sounds awesome, right? Well, it is pretty cool, except for every other storyline where all of that goes out the window. I mean it, anything that was any bit noir or cool disappears, and there's a reason for that. The creator didn't actually want to put in any of the maturity. He didn't want people swearing or doing things that were out of place for these fairy tale characters. And this becomes very clear when, like I was, you're 4 or 5 trades in, and there's nothing that resembles that first storyline or the video game. Now I will say that it's not all bad. There is a great issue where we learn that Bigby Wolf has been alive long enough that he actually fought in World War II. We see an awesome flashback that is like an old war film like Where Eagles Dare. Still, it fails to ever be as interesting as that first storyline. It just starts getting goofy, which is the exact opposite of what the whole comic was supposed to be. Extremely disheartened after reading this, I came to an insane realization. Bigby Wolf sucks. And you want to know why? Because he's literally Wolverine. Always smoking? Check. Tough guy who can go berserk at any time? almost like an animal? Check. Can't die? Check. Has been alive long enough to fight in some wars? Goddamn check. And Wolverine is better in every way. He's more noir, more kick-ass, and he's not part of some crappy Vertigo comic. Fables sucks. You'd be better off reading any X-Men or Wolverine comic. So this third entry, I'll probably get some flack for, but I don't care. The biggest example of wasted potential is Spawn. Now, I thought that everyone knew that Spawn sucked, but apparently not. I know that Spawn is a legend, and it was the comic to blow up Image and Todd McFarlane. I respect all that, but also, the comic is terrible. I'm not just blindly saying this either. I wanted to love Spawn so bad. I played as him in Mortal Kombat and thought that he was badass. I did some research and found out about his backstory. Also cool. So without thought, I got the first full compendium. Well, to quote Spawn, bad move. I read the first couple of issues, not that bad, some dark aesthetic and some real potential, and I'm serious about that. This could have been amazing. A mercenary wrongfully killed makes a deal with the devil to come back and see his wife. His wish is granted and he's transformed into a hellspawn, equipped with these powerful abilities. But there's a catch. He's horribly scarred physically and mentally, and he also has a limit on his powers. This is where what could be the best part of the character comes in. Because he has a plethora of skills as a merc, he doesn't need to use the supernatural powers. Basically meaning, instead of throwing green plasma at guys, he can now blow them away with multiple guns. I know, it's 90s, but it's a cool concept. The thing is, it can't even pull that off. Atop the mountain of things wrong with Spawn is the issue of text. So when Todd was writing this, I'm guessing he was testing how much text you could fit onto one single page. Like, holy crap. Cool it with the news reporter scenes that are the same length as Dune, and they are badly ripped from Frank Miller, like everything in this tripe. I read far into this compendium, one of the only highlights being the issues that Grant Morrison worked on, and that's saying something coming from me. For the first time, it gives Spawn an actual threat to deal with that isn't some generic mercenary or an idiotic clown. Spawn would be 10,000 times better without Violator taking up half the pages. For a comic that is meant to be dark and edgy with spikes, chains and churches, it doesn't have any of that. Instead, it is just extremely goofy. It has its rare good moments, like issue 5 is pretty awesome and the overt kill fight is okay, but to be truly honest, this is not good. There are 80s comics that are way darker without coming across as cringe. Like hearing Spawn say frigging over and over makes him seem like a 6-year-old who isn't allowed to swear. There are many interpretations of Spawn and all of them are gaslighting you. He doesn't sit on church rooftops, dual-wielding massive guns and brutally taking out criminals. It's a lie. Instead, he does sing-alongs with homeless people and he cries a lot. If you want something badass, go watch the excellent HBO Spawn animated series. It exceeds the comic in many different ways, bringing a deadly serious tone, a gothic aesthetic. And this one shocked me, but it has a somewhat noir-inspired world. It's like Spawn is amazing in everything that isn't his own comic. Just like Hellboy, I don't hate Spawn entirely. I just think it's a massive waste of potential. And the last hot take of the video coming up. The best Image comic isn't Spawn, Youngblood, Savage Dragon, even Invincible. The best Image comic is the kick-ass John Woo style awesomeness that is the Wildcats. Grifter rules and Spawn sucks. If you don't like that, take a hike. So I don't expect everyone to agree with me on this, but I just had to put it out there. There's nothing worse than a comic that could have been good but wasn't. So if you did agree with anything I said, let me know. And if you didn't, go complain to your boyfriend.